Have you ever held on to something for so long that it started holding you back? Maybe it's a memory you can't shake, a person who no longer belongs in your life, a job that pays the bills but drains your soul, or maybe it's that critical voice in your head whispering, "You're not enough." If any of that sounds familiar, you're in the right place. Today we're diving into The Art of Letting Go by Nick Trenton, not just a feel-good self-help book, but a practical, science-backed guide to emotional freedom. This isn't about toxic positivity or quick fixes. It's about real, raw healing. Because here's the truth. You can't grow if you're still gripping the past. You can't evolve if you're still carrying what hurt you. So don't click away. Somewhere in the next 25 minutes. There's a message here. Your future self is waiting to hear. Let's begin. Letting go sounds simple, doesn't it? But as Nick Trenton reminds us right at the beginning, it's one of the hardest things we'll ever do. So let's ask the honest question. Why do we hold on in the first place? Trenton explains that holding on, whether to a painful memory, a toxic person, a deep insecurity, or even a past version of ourselves, is often a defense mechanism. We do it for comfort, for control, and sometimes for identity. Because even when something hurts, if it's familiar, we cling to it. That pain? At least we understand it. The unknown? That's scarier than staying stuck. Let's take Ananya, not the Bollywood actress, just a 30-year-old graphic designer from Bangalore. 3 years ago, her ex said something hurtful about her creativity. Just one comment, but it stuck. Every time she started a new design, that voice came back. "You're not original." Even though he was long gone, his voice lived rent-free in her head. That's what emotional baggage does. It stays long after the event has passed. Not because it's helping us, but because we believe it gives us a sense of control. But here's the twist Nick delivers. Holding on isn't control. It's a trap. It's like carrying a heavy backpack you've forgotten to take off. Your shoulders hurt, your pace slows, and eventually you break down. But still, you don't notice the straps digging into your skin. So the first step to letting go isn't forcing yourself to move on. It's becoming curious. Asking yourself, what am I really holding on to? Why does this feel safer than release? Who would I be without this weight? This chapter isn't about blame. It's about awareness. Because awareness is the first kind of freedom. If you're still here, listening good, that means you're not avoiding this. You're confronting it. And that's the only way healing begins. So now that we understand why we hold on, the next question is, what do we do with that awareness? And Nick Trenton makes it crystal clear. Acceptance is step one. Let that sink in. After all, how can you let go of something you're still denying, still justifying, still pretending doesn't hurt as much as it actually does? In chapter 1, we talked about Ananya holding on to a painful comment from years ago. Now imagine if she kept telling herself, "It didn't bother me," or "Maybe he was right." That's not healing. That's self-gaslighting. And Trenton warns us, you can't heal what you won't face. Here's the kicker. Acceptance is not approval. It's not saying, what happened was okay. It's saying, what happened happened. And I won't keep fighting reality. You stop wishing the past was different. You stop replaying what could have been or what should have happened. You begin to breathe in the present, even if it's uncomfortable, because it's the only place growth can start. Think of Robert Downey Jr., Iron Man himself, a man who was once lost in addiction, arrested multiple times, nearly written off by Hollywood. But what turned it around? Not luck, not even talent. It was acceptance. He looked his demons in the face and said, "This is where I am. This is where I've become, but this is not where I have to stay." Nick Trenton emphasizes, we spend so much energy resisting what already is. Fighting reality is like trying to swim upstream forever, exhausting, draining, and ultimately pointless. And when we finally let go of that resistance, even just a little, that's when the healing begins. So ask yourself, what truths have you been avoiding? What past pain have you been pretending didn't matter? Where have you been swimming upstream? Because here's the raw truth. Until you accept, you're stuck. But the moment you face it, really face it, something begins to shift. You stop being a victim of the past and start becoming the author of your future. Don't skip this. This is the uncomfortable part. But this is where the real transformation begins. So now that we've faced reality, accepted, what's the next step? Nick Trenton takes us deeper. He says, it's not just what happened that keeps us stuck. It's the story we tell ourselves about it. Let that land for a second. Your brain, it's not a camera recording facts. It's a storyteller, a dramatist, a pattern-seeking, meaning-making machine. And most of the time, it's telling fiction, half-truths, outdated scripts, narratives that sound convincing but aren't actually true. Nick explains it beautifully. We don't just experience life. We experience the interpretation of life. And that interpretation, that becomes our identity. Think about this. I failed once, so I'm a failure. They left, so I must not be lovable. They criticized me, so I must be worthless. Sound familiar? These are not facts. These are stories. Stories we learned, or made up, or absorbed from childhood, trauma, heartbreak, or one bad experience that somehow became our whole identity. Let's bring in an example. Rohit Sharma, not the cricketer, just a 29-year-old startup founder from Pune. 2 years ago, his dream company crashed and burned. Investors backed out. His team dissolved. He spent the next 2 years haunted by one thought. I am a failure. I'll never build anything again. But then something shifted. He started working with a therapist. He read books like this one. And slowly, he realized failure didn't define him. It educated him. It didn't mean he was unworthy. It meant he was human. That shift in narrative, it changed everything. Because when you rewrite the story, you reclaim the power. Nick Trenton encourages us. Be brave enough to challenge your inner narrator. Don't take every thought at face value. Ask questions like, is this true? Who told me this? What would I say to a friend who believed this? Because here's the truth. Letting go isn't just about releasing the past. It's about reclaiming the present with a new story. One that empowers instead of paralyzes. Here's a question for you. What story have you been telling yourself for years that it's finally time to rewrite? Because this is the chapter where many people start to breathe again. Don't stop now. The next part, that's where the emotional breakthrough begins. So we've learned how to rewrite the stories we tell ourselves. But what happens when those old stories still creep in? When anxiety shows up? When the inner critic whispers? When fear grabs the wheel? That's where Nick Trenton introduces a game-changing idea, mindful detachment. Now, before you think this means becoming cold or emotionless, let's be clear. Detachment isn't about not caring. It's about caring wisely. It's about creating just enough distance between you and your thoughts, so you can choose how to respond instead of automatically reacting. Let me ask you something. Have you ever been so wrapped up in an emotion, anger, jealousy, sadness that you became it? You weren't just feeling angry. You were anger. You weren't just feeling anxious. You were anxiety. That's what Nick calls fusion. Emotional fusion. When you and the emotion become one tangled mess. Mindful detachment is the opposite of that. It's stepping back and saying, this is anxiety. It's not me. It's something passing through. This is sadness. I can feel it, but I don't have to become it. There's fear again. I see it. I'm breathing. I'm still here. Trenton gives us a powerful practice. Label your thoughts. Watch them like clouds passing across the sky. Instead of saying I'm worthless, try, I'm having the thought that I'm worthless. Instead of I'm a failure, say, I notice my mind is telling me a failure story again. Do you feel the shift? You're not suppressing. You're not resisting. You're just observing. And in that moment, you create space. And in that space, you find freedom. It reminds me of something Oprah once said. Feel the feelings, but don't let them control you. They're messengers, not masters. That's mindful detachment. Let's go back to Rohit for a second, a 29-year-old startup founder from Pune. After his business failed, the voices in his head were loud. Every time he saw someone else succeed, he felt shame. But once he started practicing this kind of observation, labeling, not judging, those voices lost their grip. Instead of drowning in emotion, he started swimming through it. And here's the truth. You don't stop thoughts from coming. You just stop believing every single one. You are not your thoughts. You are not your pain. You are the one witnessing it calmly, patiently, powerfully. This chapter, it's subtle, but it's life-changing. Don't skip the next one. It'll teach you how to let go practically, not just emotionally. If you've made it this far, you're doing the work. You're not just listening. You're growing. Let's keep going. So far, we've talked about observing your emotions without becoming them. But what happens when life doesn't go your way, when people don't behave the way you expect? Or when uncertainty creeps in and you just want to grab the wheel and steer? That's where this next truth hits hard. Control is comforting, but most of the time, it's an illusion. Nick Trenton puts it simply. The tighter you grip, the more you suffer. And let's be honest. How often have you tried to predict the future? Control your partner's behavior? Fix every possible problem before it even exists? Let's take Sanjana, not the actress, just a 33-year-old working mom from Mumbai. Every morning, she'd map out her entire day, her kids' moods, her boss's reactions, her team's performance. One thing goes wrong, boom, spiral. She wasn't planning, she was clinging. Because deep down, like so many of us, she believed, if I don't control it, it'll all fall apart. Sound familiar? Nick explains that this kind of hyper-control isn't strength, it's fear in disguise. It's fear of chaos, fear of failure, fear of not being good enough. And here's the practice he offers, one that stopped me in my tracks the first time I read it. Whenever you feel that urge to control, pause. Ask yourself, what am I afraid will happen if I let go? Not, what am I trying to fix? Not, what should I do next? Just that simple, raw question, what am I afraid of? Because that answer, that is what you need to face. Letting go of control doesn't mean you become passive. It means you stop living in fear. It means saying, I can't control the storm, but I can control how I show up in the rain. And here's the paradox. When you release control, you actually gain power. Because instead of reacting from fear, you respond from clarity. Think of Keanu Reeves. He's known for being chill, calm, almost detached in a peaceful way. But behind that is deep acceptance. He's seen loss. He's seen chaos. And yet he moves through life with grace, not force. That's what Nick is teaching here. Try this. The next time things don't go your way, traffic, a missed deadline, a fight, don't resist it. Don't try to force it better. Just say, this is happening. I don't like it. But I don't need to control it to survive. That shift, that's emotional strength. If you've been struggling with anxiety, overthinking, or the need to micromanage your life, this is the chapter you'll want to come back to again and again. Because here's the truth. Control might feel like safety, but surrender, that's where peace lives. And speaking of peace, the next chapter is about forgiveness. Not just for others, but for yourself. Don't miss this, because this might be the part that finally sets you free. Alright, this chapter is not light. But if you've made it this far, I want to invite you to stay, because this might be the most important chapter in the entire book. Let's talk about trauma, the kind you remember, and the kind you don't even realize you're still carrying. Nick Trenton doesn't pretend this part is easy. He doesn't give you a magic formula. He tells the truth. Letting go of trauma is not a straight road. It's layered, it's slow, it's messy, and sometimes it hurts before it heals, but it can heal. Now let's clear something up. Trauma isn't always about one big dramatic moment. Sometimes it's not the earthquake. It's the daily tremors, the little rejections, the friend who always made you feel invisible, the parent who loved you, but only when you performed, the teacher who laughed when you spoke up. It's not just what happened. It's what it meant to you. Let me introduce you to Arav again, not the movie star, just a 35-year-old HR manager from Delhi. Growing up, Arav was told, don't cry, don't be weak, so he didn't. For 20 years, he wore a mask of calm and logic. But inside, he was drowning. Until one day in therapy, he heard this sentence. You had to survive by shutting down. That wasn't weakness, that was intelligence. That moment cracked something open. Nick Trenton dives deep into this. How trauma doesn't just live in our memories, it lives in our bodies. Your nervous system remembers what your mind tries to forget. So even if the relationship ended, the abuse stopped, the school years are long gone, your body may still react as if danger is present. Racing heart, tight chest, shallow breath, emotional flashbacks. And that's not you being dramatic. That's you being wired to survive. So how do we begin to let go? Nick says, start with awareness. Just notice when you're triggered. Don't judge it. Don't rush to fix it. This fear, that's old. That's not about today. Then comes gentleness. You don't heal by bullying yourself into moving on. You heal by making space for your truth and holding it with compassion. And yes, for many of us, healing requires help. Whether that's a therapist, a trauma-informed coach, or just someone who sees you fully, getting support isn't weak. It's wise. One of my favorite lines from this chapter is this. You're not broken. You adapted. And now you can choose a new path. Let that sink in. Because maybe no one ever told you. You deserve freedom. You deserve peace. You deserve to stop living as if the worst is always around the corner. But here's the thing. You don't get there by pretending everything's okay. You get there by facing what wasn't and choosing to rise anyway. And hey, if you're still listening right now, that says a lot about you. It means you're brave. It means you're ready to heal. And healing doesn't mean the past disappears. It means it stops controlling you. So take a breath. You're doing better than you think. And we're not done yet. The next chapter is about self-forgiveness. And it's a powerful one. Don't go anywhere. Because this is where the real shift begins. Seeking closure, the internal shift. Let's be honest. How many nights have you rehearsed that one conversation in your head? The apology you wish they gave. The explanation you deserved. The one moment that could finally give you closure. If you've done that, welcome to being human. Nick Trenton calls it out plainly. We all want closure. But we often chase it in the wrong place. We wait for the call, the message, the, hey, I was wrong, the, you mattered more than I showed. But here's the hard truth. Closure isn't something you're given. It's something you create. Nick uses a powerful metaphor here, one that hits deep. Waiting for closure from someone else is like waiting for a thief to return what they stole. And that line, it hits because we know it's true. Let me tell you about Zara. She is not an influencer, not a celebrity. Just a 26-year-old photographer from Hyderabad. Her best friend ghosted her 2 years ago after 10 years of deep connection. No explanation. No fight. Just silence. She kept waiting. Maybe they'd message on her birthday. Maybe one day they'd say sorry. But that day never came. And one afternoon, while reading this exact chapter, something shifted. Zara realized Their silence isn't my responsibility. My healing is. She wrote a letter she never sent. She said everything she needed to say, and then she moved forward. That's what Nick means by reclaiming your peace. Because chasing closure is often just chasing validation, hoping someone else will finally make us feel seen or worthy or enough. But here's the thing. They might never change. They might never admit they hurt you. They might not even remember what they did. So if your peace depends on them doing the right thing, you're giving them power they don't deserve. Nick says, letting go is not passive. It's an active decision to stop needing their permission to heal. And yes, it's hard. Of course it is. Especially when you gave them love, honesty, years of your life. But you get to decide that the story doesn't end with their silence. You get to write the next chapter one where your healing isn't on hold. So if you're still waiting for closure right now, maybe this is your sign to stop waiting. Instead, write your own ending. Say the words you needed to hear to yourself. You mattered. You didn't deserve that. You're allowed to move on, even without their explanation. And hey, if this part hurts a little, that's okay. It means you're growing. It means you care deeply. And it means you're ready to choose peace over permission. Stay with me. The next chapter is all about self-forgiveness. Because sometimes, the person we're waiting on isn't someone else. It's ourselves. And trust me, if you skip now, you might miss one of the most healing insights in this entire book. Let's keep going. You've come too far to turn back now. The power of self-compassion. Let's get real for a moment. When was the last time you were truly kind to yourself? Not when things were going well. Not when you had it all together. But when you failed. When you said the wrong thing. When you felt like you weren't enough. Now think, if your best friend came to you in that moment in tears, ashamed, hurting, would you say, you're such a failure? Would you call them weak or pathetic? No, you'd say, it's okay. You'd say, you're still a good person. You'd say, let's figure this out together. That's self-compassion. And as Nick Trenton reminds us, it's not a luxury. It's a lifeline. So many of us think beating ourselves up will make us better. But here's the truth. You can't shame your way into growth. You can only grow in a space of safety, trust, and understanding. Let me give you a real-world example. Think of Ayush, not the Bollywood actor, just a 32-year-old software engineer from Delhi. He made a critical error at work that cost his team weeks of progress. And for months, he carried the guilt like a backpack full of bricks. His inner voice? Brutal. How could you mess that up? You're such an idiot. He couldn't focus. He couldn't sleep. And worst of all, he stopped believing in himself. Until one day, his therapist asked him, would you speak to your younger brother that way if he made the same mistake? That one question changed everything. He realized. The voice in your head doesn't have to be your enemy. You can train it to be your ally, your coach, your inner friend. Nick Trenton offers a practice that's so simple but so powerful. When you're in pain, pause, place your hand on your heart, and say something kind out loud to yourself. It might feel silly at first, but with practice, it rewires your nervous system. It tells your brain, I'm not a threat to myself anymore. And that's when real healing begins. Self-compassion doesn't mean letting yourself off the hook. It means holding yourself accountable without hate. It means saying, yes, I made a mistake, but I'm still worthy. Yes, I have flaws, but I'm still learning. Letting go isn't just about releasing others. It's about releasing the grip of self-punishment. You are not broken. You are becoming. And if no one told you this today, let me say it now. You are doing better than you think. You deserve your own forgiveness. You deserve your own compassion. Because when you start treating yourself like someone you truly care about, that's when the real transformation begins. Stay with me, because the next chapter is where Nick takes it even deeper. He talks about letting go of the future, and how the fear of what might happen is stopping us from living right now. And trust me, if you've ever struggled with overthinking or anxiety, that chapter might change everything. So don't go anywhere. Embracing the present, letting go of the future. Here's something we don't talk about enough. Letting go isn't just about releasing the past. It's about returning to the present. Because the past, it's over. And the future, it hasn't happened yet. But your mind, it loves to wander, dragging you back into yesterday's regrets, or throwing you ahead into tomorrow's fears. Nick Trenton reminds us of something powerful and simple. The only place you can actually live your life is now. But here's the thing, we're rarely here. We're in that conversation from last week we keep replaying. Or we're stuck imagining what could go wrong next month, next year, next decade. And that's exhausting. Let me tell you about Kavya, a 27-year-old copywriter from Hyderabad. She had everything going for her, a good job, supportive friends, and a dream of starting her own agency. But she was constantly anxious, always running through what ifs. What if I fail? What if I run out of money? What if people laugh at me? She wasn't living. She was projecting. Until she started practicing something Nick teaches. Mindful presence. Now before you roll your eyes and think, oh, here comes the meditation lecture. Pause. This isn't about sitting on a mountain for hours. It's about tiny moments, micro practices that bring you back to now. Nick suggests something incredibly grounding. Next time you feel overwhelmed, just pause, take a deep breath. Name 5 things you see, 4 things you can touch, 3 sounds you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you're grateful for. That's it. That's presence. And when you're present, something magical happens. You realize, right now I'm okay. Right now there is no emergency. Right now I'm breathing. I'm safe. I'm alive. Let me ask you a question and really think about it. How many moments have you missed because you were too busy mentally time traveling? Moments with family, moments of peace, moments of joy that slipped by unnoticed. Presence isn't just a spiritual concept. It's the gateway to peace. It's where clarity lives. It's where healing begins. You see, when you stop living in someday, you start living in today. And this is one of the most courageous acts of letting go. Letting go of the need to know what happens next. Letting go of regrets that no longer serve you. Letting go of the illusion that life is better in some future version of yourself. Nick Trenton says, peace isn't something you chase. It's something you return to. And that return always happens right here. In this breath, this heartbeat, this moment. So next time your mind spirals, next time you catch yourself stuck in what was or what might be, just remember, now is enough. You are here. You are alive. And that's the most powerful place to be. Creating space, what comes after letting go. So here we are, the final chapter, but don't go anywhere yet, because this isn't just the end of the book, it might be the beginning of something new for you. Nick Trenton calls this creating space, because letting go isn't just about what you release, it's about what you make room for, and that's where real life begins. Let's think about it for a moment. When you let go of resentment, you create space for peace. When you let go of perfectionism, you create space for growth. When you let go of toxic people, you create space for real love. But if your life is filled to the brim with noise, old wounds, regrets, overthinking, how will joy find you? How will clarity reach you? Here's an example that might feel familiar. There's a guy named Ramesh, no, not the actor, just a 35-year-old dad in Delhi. He held on for years to a failed business deal that wrecked his confidence. He blamed himself, replayed it endlessly. He stopped taking risks, stopped laughing with his kids, stopped dreaming, until one day he sat quietly and realized he was living in the wreckage of a moment that no longer existed, and that wreckage was taking up space where joy used to live. So he did something radical. He let it go, not overnight, not easily, but intentionally. And when he did, he had room again, room to play, room to rebuild, room to be present. That's what Nick Trenton means by creating space. Because letting go is not just subtraction, it's transformation. You clear out the clutter, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And in that clearing, something sacred emerges. You stop surviving, and you start living. And here's one of the most important truths from the book. Letting go isn't a one-time act. It's not something you do once and never think about again. It's a practice, a habit, a daily decision. Every day you get to ask, what am I still carrying that no longer serves me? What would it feel like to put that down? What could I make room for if I did? And with each of those choices, you reclaim your energy, you reclaim your clarity, you reclaim your life. So let me ask you now, right here, right now, what would your life look like if you truly let go? Not just of the big things, but the little things too. The passive guilt, the silent comparison, the old self-doubt you carry like a second skin. What would open up for you? What joy could step in? What purpose might finally have room to breathe? Because at the end of the day, this isn't about the past. It's about the future you deserve. And that future starts with space. Your path to emotional freedom. Key takeaways from the art of letting go. Alright, let's pause, take a deep breath, and go over what we just walked through. Not just as information, but as insight you can carry forward in your real, everyday life. Because this isn't just about letting go. It's about living lighter, freer, wiser. Here are the 10 most powerful lessons from The Art of Letting Go by Nick Trenton. 1. We hold on to pain for safety, not because it helps. Sometimes, the hardest thing to admit is that we've gotten comfortable with our pain. It's familiar, predictable, but that doesn't mean it's helping. Letting go begins with seeing that truth clearly. 2. Acceptance is the first step to healing. You don't have to like what happened. You don't have to pretend it didn't hurt. But you do have to stop fighting with reality, because healing can't happen in denial. 3. Your thoughts are not facts. The mind loves stories, and most of them aren't true. I'm not enough. I'll always fail. No one cares. These are narratives, not truths. And once you start challenging them, your whole life begins to shift. 4. Detachment is not indifference, it's wisdom. Mindful detachment means you stop being consumed by your emotions. You observe them, you hold space for them, but you don't become them. That's power. 5. Control is often fear in disguise. Trying to manage every outcome, every person, every future moment, that's not strength. That's anxiety pretending to be safety. And when you let go of that grip, you make space for peace. 6. Healing from trauma takes time and care. There is no shortcut, no quick fix. Trauma, big or small, leaves an imprint. But with awareness, support, and gentleness, you can absolutely heal. 7. Closure comes from you, not from others. Waiting for an apology that may never come. It keeps you stuck. Closure isn't a gift you get. It's a choice you make. And that choice sets you free. 8. Speak to yourself with compassion. Not just on good days, but especially when you're hurting, when you've messed up, when you feel lost. Because the way you speak to yourself becomes the way you heal yourself. 9. Stay present. It's where peace lives. Your power doesn't live in yesterday's regrets or tomorrow's worries. It lives right here, in this breath, this moment, this step. Mindfulness is not about being perfect. It's about being here. 10. Letting go creates space for what truly matters. Once you release the clutter, the emotional baggage, the mental noise, the unspoken resentment, you open up to joy, to clarity, to life. Letting go is not loss. It's the most beautiful kind of gain. So now, take a second, reflect. Which one of these resonated with you the most? Which one do you need right now, more than anything else? And maybe more importantly, what's one small step you can take today to begin letting go just a little bit? Because if you've made it this far in the video, you didn't just listen, you showed up for yourself. And that means you're not just surviving, you're transforming. If even one part of this video made you pause and reflect, hold on to that feeling. Go ahead, hit that like button if this message resonated with you. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more life-changing book breakdowns, the kind that go beyond the surface and dive deep into real transformation. Most importantly, grab your copy of The Art of Letting Go by Nick Trenton using the link in the description below. This isn't just a book, it's a friend, a guide, a mirror that helps you see yourself clearly. If you've made it this far, that means you didn't just listen, you showed up for yourself. And that's powerful. Don't stop here. Check out our video on The Mountain Is You Brianna Wist, or Forgiving What You Can't Forget by Lysa TerKeurst, because letting go is only the beginning of your journey. Until next time, remember, you are not your pain, you are not your past, you are the one who chooses what stays and what goes. Choose peace, choose freedom, choose you.